Hello and welcome to A Stitch in Time. Today is Saturday, September 16th, 2017, and this is episode 32. My name is Carol and my Ravelry name is Knits and Pearls. The show notes for this and every episode can be found on the blog at astitchintimepodcast.blogspot.ca, and you can also find them in the episode thread in the Ravelry group. And that can be found by searching A Stitch in Time Podcast under the Groups tab there. Come and join in the chatter. I'd love to see what you are making, so please share that in the What Are You Making thread. That can be any sort of crafty endeavor. It doesn't just have to be knitting or crochet. Also, if you like, you can join in the Agatha Christie Along, which is a knit along I'm hosting in conjunction with reading my way through my Agatha Christie collection. And you just have to knit or crochet anything that you can somehow tie into Agatha Christie. And it could be a pattern that's specifically inspired by one of her characters or book titles or Agatha Christie herself, or knit with a yarn that somehow relates to Agatha Christie, or if you can find any way to tie it in, by all means do so. And I have begun drawing a monthly prize, and I draw from all of the finished projects right from the beginning to the end of the knit along, and I am giving a prize. Sorry, can't get that out quite right. A pattern that is up to $10 US in value that is giftable on Ravelry. So get your entries in. I have lots to talk about this week. Lots of knitting and some sewing. I have an acquisition to show you. I'll talk a little bit about what I'm reading and also what's been going on in my life. So I actually recorded this. I recorded already earlier this week, and for a variety of reasons, the podcast never got it got uploaded and never made its way to you. So I've kept the sewing section from that last episode because nothing's changed since then, rather than re-recording it. But I am re-recording the knitting section and the what's going on in my life section. Just because things have progressed since then. So sit back and make yourself comfortable and let's get started. So I actually have a finished project this week that wasn't even begun last week when I talked to you. It all started with this shawl. So this is the Aurora shawl by Helen Stewart, and it is part of the Shawl Society, the first Shawl Society patterned collection. So I had knit it from this is my second rendition of it. I had used a set of minis that I'd acquired at a yarn show or I guess a yarn show you'd call it, back in March. So I put it on. It's really sunny today. Well, sun and cloud. It's really nice. I was out for a walk earlier. But it's definitely becoming fall. It's not quite so hot these days, which is just lovely. I love spring and fall. Those are my favorite seasons. In any case, I had this skein of Noro Silk Garden. It was color 267. And it had a lot of the same colors that are in the shawl. The only problem is that I only had one 50-gram skein. And that wasn't going to be enough to knit a hat. So I went online. I thought a garter stitch hat would be a suitable match for this because there's garter stitch in the beginning and the end sections of the shawl. And I wear my shawls this size as scarves. So I plan to wear it with a couple of different coats that I have. So in the end, what I decided to do is incorporate this Aurora stitch pattern. Actually, yeah, that one. No, not that one. This one has eyelets. This one is just plain. And I found the Ricky hat, Rikke. That's by Sarah Young. And so what I did is I adapted that pattern, added this Aurora stitch pattern, and it kind of goes together. So The second yarn I used was this Joe Sharp Silk Road DK and the 416 Cocoa colorway. I had knit a sweater out of this a couple of years ago. And so I used that as the contrast, and I came up with this. So as you can see, I used just the Silk Garden for the first part of the hat, and then I added that Silk Road DK in and used that Aurora pattern. And then this kind of looks almost spider webby. So I like a slouchy hat with my hair a tight, I think we call them toques here in Canada. I think a beanie is another word for it, or a watch cap. Let me know. That's kind of the words I've heard and what I associate with that kind of hat. In any case, they don't look so good on me. So I always make a slouchy hat. So I'll just show you how it turned out. I thought was quite happy with it. I'll turn around so you can see. So even though putting the contrasting yarn in kind of muted the colors that were in the Silk Garden, I still think it's a pretty good match for the shawl, and it certainly will go fine even with just if I just wear it without this scarf. It'll go well with those coats that I have. One is about this mushroomy taupey color, the other's black. So anyway, I was happy with that. Oh, that's great. You can see did wonders for my hair. So yes, it's been on my mind for a while, so I'm glad that I actually finally got it done. Take that off now. It's actually not too warm, but probably more comfortable without. Moving on to works in progress, knitting wise. My first thing I'm going to show you is the socks that I'm knitting for the Grocery Girls September Sock Bash. I'm using this yarn, Hazel Knits Peacock Light in the Honey colorway. And I am knitting what's called the Life Cycle Socks by Star Athena. And I have my first sock done. So there we go. I'm very happy with these. Now, this pattern is not for the faint of heart. It takes a lot of paying attention, especially this whole section in here. I'm just going to turn this on the sock blocker so that you can appreciate that section more fully. It is very beautiful. It's highly textured and really interesting. Isn't that gorgeous? Has this leaf incorporates baubles, and this is like a garter and lace pattern in here, and you can see this twisted lacy part, cabley lacy part moving up the middle, and then this line, diagonal line, and it works its way around the back of the sock too. So this is how the back looks. And then you have this called worm stitch here. And then in the heel, they substitute, or she substituted these garter bumps for the worm stitch. I guess just because it would fit in your shoe better, be more comfortable and more durable for a heel flap. So last time I showed these, I had just finished the heel flap of their toe-up sock. I had just finished the heel flap and was just starting the leg pattern. And I had worked, I think, about 3/4 of an inch to an inch, and realized that the way I had adjusted where I was placing my worm stitch because of where I'd left off on the foot. Where the pattern instructed me to put it didn't quite work out with where I'd left off with it on the foot of the sock. So then I realized after I started that rather than setting these two, offsetting them from the garter ones on the heel flap, they were lined up. So I took it back, readjusted, and I marked everything on my chart so that I should be able to do it with no problem, knock wood, with sock number 2. But this one, I made a couple of mistakes and took them back a few rows. It's definitely something you have to pay a lot of attention to. And the chart for this section is quite small. It's all fit onto one page, and I think there's 70 something or 80 rows, so it's quite small. I was having trouble seeing it sometimes and had to really pay attention. That's how some of the mistakes got made. In any case, I love how it's turned out. I think it's a true work of art, this pattern. The designer give full marks to her for creating a lovely sock. And so I better cast on. I haven't yet cast on sock number 2, but I got to do that soon because I need to have this done. The second one done, or the pair done, by the end of the month. So there we go. My second work in progress, I also finished the first sock. It's The Vicar's Wife by Maureen Folds. And I started these way back, I think in April, for the my Agatha Christie along. And then I got stalled out on the heel because I wanted to incorporate this pattern into the heel flap. That's one of the options. And I guess just mentally I knew I needed to be there, and it wasn't till just over a week ago that I actually sat down and did it. And then once I did, this rest of the foot just flew off the needles. So I'm very happy with how that's turned out. And the yarn for that one is Ancient Arts 3-ply fingering sock, and it's in the it's in the flamboyant colorway. And the Vicar's Wife, this pattern is based on the character from Murder, I think it's Murder at the Vicarage. It's an Agatha Christie book. And the Vicar's Wife is not very conventional, and so I thought I was trying to find a very unconventional color for a Vicar's Wife, so I thought hot pink was the way to go. So again, have to cast on sock number 2 for that, but I hope to do that soon, and I hope it doesn't take me as long to knit the second sock as it took me to get the first one done. It's kind of crazy it's taken that long. My third work in progress, knitting out of this Opal Van Gogh yarn based on this vase with sunflowers work of art here, painting. And I think last time I showed you I had the heel in one of the socks, and I had still to do the heel in the second. So I've added the heel. And the yarn I've used for that is West Yorkshire Spinner's Signature 4-ply in color 240 Butterscotch, because I thought it went really well with the golden yellow that's in this yarn. So, yeah, I haven't done a whole lot more since that, but this is my TV and travel knitting, and I guess I haven't done a lot of either of them since the last time we spoke, so there you go. Okay, I'm just going to take a sip of my tea here. This week I am not drinking David's tea. I brought the package in to show you. It's it's called House Blend, Organic House Blend from Moon Tea Company, and I got this one. We visited the Yale Historic Site a few weeks ago. I'd had it with my lunch and I enjoyed it, and when I saw it was being sold in the gift shop, I picked up a package. It's like an Irish breakfast tea base, and it has some lemon peel in it, and it's really nice flavor. Been enjoying that. So my first new project, I showed you the pattern for this last week in the yarn that I was going to use. So it's Calliopesis by Bonnie Sennett. And as you can see, it's a long infinity cowl that's 2 colors. And you can wear it like that, or the way I'll wear it is wrapped like this. I do prefer an infinity cowl doubled up to just a short cowl around my neck. I like the double layer, and I like the drapiness. I like how they lie. So the first yarn, the main color that I'm using is this beautiful gray tonal. It's from Valley Yarns Charlemont Kettle Dye, and it's in the Dusk colorway. And then the contrast is this, oops, got a needle stuck in here. This red. And it's Beyond Basic Knits. It's just 100% merino fingering weight, and this is called Candy Apple. And it's really quite a blue, true blue red. I know in the camera it's quite bright, and I believe once it shows up on film, that's not the right word, but what you're seeing is probably less bright than what I'm seeing in the camera, but I don't think it shows quite as dark as it is in real life. But it's a real blue red, kind of deep blue red. So I've got a good start on this. I dropped my needle. You use 2 different size needles for the different sections, so I'm constantly switching back and forth. So you do a provisional cast on. I guess it makes more sense to turn it this way. You do a provisional cast on, and then this is the first lace section, and then you do a transition section, and it's knit in a really interesting way. You use a circular or a double pointed needle, and you knit across in one color, and then you slide your stitches back up to the other end, and you knit across the same direction with the second color, and then you turn around, you knit back with the first color, again slide your stitches to the end, and then knit the next row with the contrasting color. And it makes these garter ridges really pop. So that you can see the gray is really standing out. And then in this section, you can see the red really stands out. And then there's a good look at the red lace section. So the length of these various lace sections varies throughout the cowl. And then they're interrupted, as you can see, by these garter sections. So even though this is a long rectangle and scarves in general are not that interesting to knit, I think switching back and forth between lace patterns and having these little transition areas to mark your progress, I think I'll actually be able to stay fairly invested in this project. I am knitting it to wear for curling. During the colder weather, it's particularly cold out on the ice, and so I've taken to adding a cowl during that time period, and just helps me keep me just a little bit warmer out there. And I prefer a cowl to a scarf simply because it does stay put and the ends don't come untucked or hang down. All right, and then the last work in progress I have with knitting is it's called the Wishmaker shawl, and I'll show you a picture. This is the 5th shawl in the 2nd Shawl Society collection, and that was released, I think it was last Thursday. And so as you can see, it's a 3-color shawl with stripes and eyelets. And a couple weeks ago I had shown you some yarn I picked up in the States. It was Yoth Yarns, and I bought 3 colors. It's a DK, it's called Big Sister, and it's a DK weight yarn, and it's in a merino cashmere nylon blend. It's really nice and soft and squishy. So this is the Honeydew Melon. That's my color A. This is called Time, and this is my color B. Now I noticed when I played back my episode from last week, this came up more blue than green, but it's almost a spruce green. It's definitely green, but with a blue cast to it. And in the camera, this right now, it does seem relatively accurate. So it'll be interesting to see how it shows up on the recording this week. And then this one is called Avocado. So I'm already 65% of the way through this shawl. Obviously, being DK weight, it knits up quite quickly. Plus, being garter stitch and just eyelet rows, it's a fairly simple knit. Can do it, while you talk to people and such. So I've got quite a bit done. So it starts out with this plain section of color A. And then you move into color B, and as you can see, there's a striping sequence where you add in color, you alternate color A and color B. And then I fairly recently added color C. And right now, it's just straight color C that has regular sections of eyelets, and then the shawl ends by adding in stripes of. You can see here, it'll end by adding in stripes of color A and color B. So enjoying that one very much. I shouldn't have any trouble finishing that up. I haven't really been concentrating on the knit along portion of the Shawl Society this time. There are prizes for if you finish up within a month of between when one pattern's released and the next pattern's released. And sometimes that's happened and other times it hasn't, and I haven't really paid too much attention to that. I just am knitting them for pleasure, and if I end up qualifying for a prize, great. If not, that's not my main motivation, so it doesn't really matter. I did give my daughter her rune shawl just yesterday, and as I suspected, she really liked it. Immediately put it on and was wearing it yesterday evening, even though it wasn't super cold. So obviously she likes it, so it was good. Just looking, I think I'm going to talk now about what I'm reading and my acquisitions, and then I'm going to insert the sewing section, and then I'll come back and talk a little bit about what's going on with me this week. So I finished listening to My Not So Perfect Life by Sophie Kinsella, and kudos to her. Although it ended pretty much how I expected it to, the book itself had some things I wasn't expecting. So it wasn't as predictable as I expected it to be, and it was enjoyable. I do prefer, I think I said this already, I prefer her other books to her Shopaholic series now. I found that one's just gotten a bit old. But I enjoyed that book. And then I'm still working on Bernice Bobs Her Hair. I'm on the second to last story. I was trying to read it last night, and I just could not keep my eyes open. So I think I got about maybe 4 or 5 pages in, and it was like, okay, I'm going to pick this up when I can really appreciate it. So close to finishing that. And then I'm anxious to get back to my Agatha Christie books again. I haven't read one for quite a while, so that'll be my next on my reading list. So I have a new acquisition this week. The timing was impeccable. I'd been out for a walk yesterday morning, and just after I got home, the doorbell rang, and the mailman was there with a parcel for me, and I needed to pay duty on it. And so it was really good that I was home, because otherwise I wouldn't have been able to get it until today, and also I would have had to go into the postal outlet to get it, and so it worked out just perfect timing. Anyway, what arrived was from Blue Moon Fiber Arts, cake worsted in the bittersweet colorway, and there's 2 ginormous skeins of it. And this is the yarn I ordered to knit Chimera by Carol Feller. This is a knit along that's beginning, I think it's October 7th. So there's a good look at the pattern. And I confess, when I opened this up, I was kind of disappointed because it wasn't what I pictured based on the picture on the website of the swatch of yarn. I was expecting the orange to be a brighter orange, and that this shading would be more of a red rather than a burgundy, because this is quite a rusty orange and then quite a burgundy tone that runs through it. I took it out again this morning, and I have to say it's growing on me. I think it'll be lovely knit up. And there was a note in the package to say that the yarn hasn't been reskeined. So normally they would reskein it, and the blotches would be more dispersed throughout the skein and give you a truer picture of how it'll look knit up. So I'm looking forward to kind of winding it up and swatching with it and getting a better sense of how it's going to look. And actually looks very nice on camera, and hopefully it'll suit my coloring. Normally this is quite a warm color. I don't normally wear a lot of warm tones. I usually wear cool. But anyway, I have it, and I will knit it, and if I don't love it, I'm sure I can find someone to gift the sweater to. But I actually, the more I look at it, the more I like it. So wish me luck on that one. So yes, I'm going to insert my sewing segment that I recorded the other day, and then I'll be back to wrap things up. So I will see you shortly. So the first thing I want to talk about is a couple of months ago, after I'd made my initial project bags, using the tutorial by Jenny Baker. So this was the original one I did. My daughter brought me some fabric, Doctor Who themed fabric, and asked if I would make a couple of project bags, one for her and one for her friend. So I finally got around to doing it. And so this is the fabric. Those who know that is the TARDIS from Doctor Who. And then she also had this navy fabric. It actually was a pillowcase that she'd never used. And so I used that fabric for the bottom and the lining, and then obviously the TARDIS fabric for the main part. She asked if I would put pockets inside. So I did do that. I added a pocket. And then something I'm particularly proud of is I've never watched Doctor Who, and I don't even know how I know this, but I know there's a reference to the TARDIS being bigger on the inside. So I thought it was rather clever, and I used my sewing machine embroidery monogramming feature to put that on the top of the pocket on the inside. So I'm looking forward to giving these to her and seeing her reaction to that. I don't know if she knows her old mom even knows about that. So there, I was happy with how those turned out. I have taken this pattern, I explained this before, I've taken this pattern and adjusted it a little bit to suit my liking. I've put the contrast on the bottom, and I've extended the lining out the top so that it just adds a little more interest to the top edge of the bag. And in some cases I use fabric for drawstrings. In this case I used the twill tape. That's also suggested. So here's one of them, but I've made two. Something I've been wanting to try for a while are zippered project bags. I have it in my mind that one day I would like to open a shop and like an online shop and sell project bags. So right now I'm experimenting with different styles, different sizes, different construction methods, different materials for lining and interlining, etc. And so it was time to tackle a zippered project bag. So I went online looking for patterns or tutorials, and I ended up coming across this one by soeasy.com. There's the address. And it's actually a cosmetic bag, and this pattern is available free on Craftsy. Now, as you can see, this bag is shaped like this, but I wanted to shape it in a rectangular way. And it does have box bottom like I do on the gathered project bags. But so really I used this as a guide to how to construct a zippered bag. But that's where all the similarity ends, because I changed the shape of the bag, I changed the size of the bag. But this was a great way to see just how you put them together, because I really didn't know where to start. So this was my first attempt. I have this charm pack collection by Moda called So and So. And it featured mostly floral prints, but also some prints that sort of had a quilting or sewing theme to them. So my first attempt, I sewed 3 of the charm. Do you call it a charm if it's a 5x5 square? That's what I'm going to call it. I sewed 3 charms together for the front and 3 for the back. And I sewed them onto batting using the quilt as you go method. And then, as you can see, I did a cross, an X through the center of each one to give it a little bit of quilting. And then I used some white twill fabric for the bottom and a nice bright green zipper. I knew soon into the making of this that I should have added some kind of interfacing or batting in this area of the bag, because it doesn't have a lot of structure to it compared to the quilted area. But live and learn. This is the whole point, is to see what works and what doesn't. So I lined it with just a white broadcloth. So for first try, I actually was really pleased with how it turned out. And it's certainly functional, even if it's not quite as sturdy on the bottom as I would like. And this, I would say, is like this would easily hold like that Helen Stewart shawl that I'm knitting. 3 balls of DK yarn, great size for something like that. Where my the style of drawstring bag, this is good for like a pair of socks or a small shawl. So on my second attempt, I did add batting to the bottom. This time I cut the charms in half and then sewed them together in a line. So this front and the back are the same order. And then I attached these using the quilt as you go method, and then sewed this piece onto the batting and then squared it all up and put it together. So I do like having more body here, more stability. Definitely needs batting or lining, or interfacing, I should say. My next attempt on this size bag is just going to be to use some interfacing and see how that feels. This is a polyester batting, so it's a little bit thicker than what I used for this, which is a cotton wool batting. I think I like this better. It's just a little bit thinner, but again, experimentation. So I use a pink zipper for this one, and again, white broadcloth for the lining. So I think, did this end up being, yeah, they're actually, this one looks, I guess it doesn't. I'd say this one looks smaller, but they're actually the same size. But I think because this sits more like that, it just looks a bit bigger. But I'm very pleased with this one. This try number 2 is definitely better than try number 1. So I had a number of these squares that were not floral, that were more like this. And so I decided, rather than put those on a knitting project bag, they just didn't seem to really fit. I decided to do some little notions cases. So this one's for myself for sure. I love this square. That was my favorite square. So you can see that looks like a tape measure. This one has like a quilting patterns. Another tape measure. This one has something to do with buttons. And so I decided to make a little notions pouch for my own quilting supplies. So I've got my rotary cutter in here, chalks I use for marking quilting and other things, and like a fabric marking pen, little seam ripper. So I did one of those up in those fabrics. And these I used quilt batting. And actually on this one I used some fancy stitches on my machine. I don't know if you can tell. There's this one is it's a needle and thread stitch pattern. And this is spools of thread. And then I just did a few lines on these following the slant of the tape measures. Then I did this one up. And on these all I just did the slanted along where the along where the tape measure went here, and then I just echoed it on that one. And then this one I tried out more of my stitches. So again, this side has the needle and thread, and then the thread spools. And then on this side I have a stitch that is scissors, so I used it on there. Not super obvious, but it just made it interesting, kind of fun. So I have a few more squares of the ones that have the quilting theme. So I'm going to do another notions bag out of those, and then I have a couple of more sets of this one's kind of peach colors, and then I have these that are of gray. Let's see, whoops, gray. These all kind of go together. So I'm not sure yet what I'm going to do with these, but I'll figure it out. So the thing about experimenting, trying new things, is that sometimes things don't turn out quite how you'd like them to. So I had these squares. So I decided to try a drawstring bag with them. So I followed the same basic steps that I do for this one, except that my lining wasn't a contrasting fabric, so I didn't bother doing this extra fabric at the top. And now it's interesting because proportion matters. I showed it to my husband, and he goes, "Boy, you could make it looks long and narrow," which is exactly right. He said if you did it a little narrower and a little longer, you could make like a wine bag for wine bottle, gift bag. The squares, when they were sewn up, were about a half an inch narrower across than the normal contrast fabric on the bottom. And they're a little bit higher because it's 5 inches compared to, I think, 4. But then I did this part sort of the same height. And what I should have done is made this a little bit shorter, maybe an inch or so. And I think it would have looked better proportionately. It doesn't matter. In any case, it's functional again. I just lined it, whoops, it got knocked on the nose by ties. Lined it white broadcloth. Had this leftover quilting fabric or cotton fabric from a quilt I had done. So again, experimentation, playing around. Would do a little bit differently next time, but that's the whole point of the learning process, right? So, having fun. What's next up as far as project bags? I have this Moda Black Tie Affair collection. This really nice sets of black and taupe and beige. Beautiful fabrics. Can't wait to start playing with these. And I purchased some black twill. Ooh, got threads all over everything. Black twill and cream twill. And then some cream lining. And so, again, I'm going to play with some zippered and some drawstring bags using these. And it's fun mixing and matching the charms, if that's what you call them. Squares, blocks. I don't know. Anyway, it's fun playing. I'm enjoying myself. And one of these days I'll be brave enough to actually put some up for sale. But for now, they're all experiments. And I'll just build up my bag collection and probably augment my daughters and my nieces also along the way. So hopefully they feel like winners out of all that. Okay, that's it for the sewing part. Oh, other than I hemmed a dress that I'd had a couple of years ago. I bought a dress, and it was a long dress for summer. And I found I wasn't really wearing it, and I thought that I would prefer it if it was shorter. So I did take it up above the knee, and I definitely think I'll wear it more often. I do have a couple other longer summer dresses, which I do like, but this one in particular, I felt like I was wearing a nightgown. So I'll definitely get more use out of it now. I've also did a little bit of alterations on a couple of other things, but this stuff's the fun sewing. So hello again. So since I recorded that segment, I have given the Doctor Who bags to my daughter, and she passed her friends along to her, and they were both very happy with them and got a kick out of the, it's bigger on the inside on the pocket. My daughter said, "How did you know that?" I knew she wouldn't know, and I don't even know how I know it. It's just one of those pop culture references that has come to me, so she was quite tickled by that. And so I have put my shawl project into this bag, and as you can see, there's lots of room. So putting that to good use. So, all right. Well, I guess before get into what's happening to me this week. Obviously, since we last spoke, Hurricane Irma has come and gone, and that was, again, quite devastating to watch on top of Hurricane Harvey. So all the best to any of you that might have been affected by it. Some of those islands, it's just heartbreaking to see how they were decimated. I've been to a couple of them too, so it's particularly, it hits home more. Spent time in St. Martin and St. Thomas a few years ago. Pardon me, been to the Bahamas. So we're watching fairly closely because we are leaving in a couple of weeks to go to the Dominican Republic, and we're relieved to see that they were were had very little damage, and where we're staying, it's apparently is fine, and so that was a relief. But yeah, definitely feel bad for people who are left without anything. It just can't even imagine starting over with nothing. We're so fortunate. Last week I talked to you about my sister, that she was planning. She and her husband were buying a place out here, moving out from a Vancouver suburb, and since I spoke to you, they've not only sold their place, they also have bought a new townhouse here in town. So they had looked at a couple that actually were quite close to where I live, but ended up on the south side of the city, and are very excited about moving. They're moving October 19th, I think it is. So not much time. I was talking to her the other day, and she said, it's just crazy. It's only 3 weeks between when we first started thinking about this move and getting their house ready their townhouse ready to sell, selling it, buying a new one. She said only 3 weeks passed between the beginning and the end, and then there another few weeks and they'll be here. So quite a big change for them. My brother-in-law was going to retire at the end of the year, so he's pushed that up till I think he's got a couple weeks of holidays to use up, so he's basically done at the end of this month. And then my sister is working for 3 more years, but she will commute to work from here, obviously, but it's she works afternoons, and so she's going against rush hour in any case, and or going against traffic in any case, and for 3 years. And it's a fairly straightforward highway drive, both obviously both directions. If she's going one way, she has to come back another, but she doesn't think it'll be too bad, and knowing it's only 3 years, she's prepared for that. So yeah, that'll be really neat to have another sister here in town. Make it a lot easier for us to all get together more regularly, and definitely for Christmas it'll be closer, because usually 3 out of 4 years they have to come out to us. And that's a lot of, it's a good hour's drive from where they used to live. And so now it'll just be a quick trip to any of our homes. So that's really nice. Awesome. So have you been watching Outlander? The new first episode of season 3 came out on Sunday. So my husband and I sat down to watch that. I had read the books a long time ago and have since reread them at least once more, maybe twice. I actually have them on audiobook, and I tend to listen to them on audiobook. And when the first season came out a couple of years ago, I got my husband interested in the series, and then in the TV series, and then he also has since read all of the books. And so it's kind of fun to have a show that we share like that. Our taste on movies, etc., don't always line up, so it's nice to have one that we enjoy watching together. So looking forward to this season, and I hope they continue to do a good job. It's funny, when it first came out, I was constantly checking to see how the show corresponded to what was happening in the books. And I just had to say, okay, forget it. Just take one as one, the other as the other, and don't try to compare them all the time, because you definitely lose some enjoyment by doing that. The first 3 books, in my opinion, are the best, and so I'm hoping that they can keep it interesting so that I enjoy the following seasons too. But so far they've done, I think, a really good job, and I like the casting, and of course I love the costumes. Just a enjoyable TV event. Let me think what else we've been up to. I had a dentist appointment this week. Checkup, all was good, so that's good. And then I did a little bit of shopping afterwards. Our dentist is in the mall, and so I thought I'd just take a look and see if there was anything in summer clearance that caught my eye. And I actually got some good bargains, got a new dress and a pair of shoes and a jean jacket, all for a really good price. The shoes were half price, and then when I got up to the till, I found out they were actually 70% off. So that was a big score. I am not a shopper. Other than yarn shopping, I sort of just do it when I have to, and so it's always nice to actually find something when I go out. This week we finally got around to installing a curtain rod and shelf in our spare room closet. If you've been watching for some time, or I guess if you haven't been watching for some time, we had a flood in our basement on our first floor. It's not actually underground. Last year, just before Christmas, and have since done some restoration and renovations, and one of the things that got redone was a guest room. And so now finally our guests can hang up their clothes if they're staying there. And also we bought supplies to put shelves in one of our new storage closets. Now, my husband and I have been at loggerheads over this, because my theory was, let's get some shelves in there. I can sort all the stuff that's in the garage and put it away as I go, and find appropriate sized totes to put them in. And his idea was, well, let's just sort everything out and then figure out what we need to buy and where to put the shelves. And that hasn't happened. And so I finally won the argument. So we got all this stuff for it, but then tried to put them in the other night, and it just wasn't working. And so my husband was leaving this was Wednesday night, and he was leaving Friday morning to go away. And I said, okay, let's just put it away till you get home and we'll figure it out. So I was hoping to be able to work on it this weekend, get in that garage and start sorting things. But, oh well, I've had to just, I've had more free time anyway. So I guess there's a good side to that. So yeah, my husband did leave on early Friday morning. It was, neither of us slept well, and then he had to be up. I think his alarm was set for like 3:15, and then he had 2 different alarms set, and one went off twice. So I did not have a good night's sleep, I have to say. No wonder I was so tired last night and could hardly keep my eyes open to read my book. I think I turned the light out at 20 to 11, which is really early for me. I'm kind of a night owl. So anyway, he's gone. I had dinner with my daughter and her family last night, and heard all about the kids back to school and such. And then they were having friends over to play Cards Against Humanity, but I decided not to stay, and I came home, had a nice quiet evening. And then tonight I am going to some friends. We're having, some friends are getting together for an appy night, so that should be fun. Haven't seen some of these people, or most, I guess all of them, since late July, so when ball season ended. So that'll be nice. And then we'll be getting back into volleyball soon, and then curling starts this week. So right back into our fall and winter activities and more of a routine. So I'm looking forward to that. I enjoy a routine. I think I function better when I have one. I'm more inclined to get the important things done if I know my time's, built around a schedule. So that'll be good. Yeah, and then, yesterday there was a grand opening. We have a new yarn shop that's opened in town, and I haven't visited it myself, but my daughter did go yesterday to the grand opening, and it's a Black Cat yarn shop. And Black Cat yarn is also, she's had an online shop for quite a while, I think, and has now opened up a brick and mortar store, and it's I guess she doesn't just carry her own yarn. She also has some other, my daughter was saying, Ancient Arts and Malabrigo and some others. She carries, I think, some spinning wheels, and I think it's Ashford. I think she's an Ashford dealer. Anyway, I'm looking forward to going down and checking it out, and I hope she'll be successful, because I think one thing our city is lacking is we have 2 other yarn shops, but I think we're lacking in sort of the more artisan yarns. So I'm looking forward to having the opportunity to buy some of those more locally, so that I don't have to wait till I either go to Victoria, where I go to visit my in-laws, or drive into Langley, which I don't get in there very often. So it'd be nice to have something like that closer to home, and then not have to pay shipping if I'm ordering online. So yeah, I guess I think that's about it. I'll get this all up and edited. I hopefully could get it out today. I've got gonna watch the grandkids tomorrow for a little while, so that my daughter and her husband can do some work in their townhouse. For those who don't know, they recently moved into my son-in-law's mother's home. She recently passed away, and so they are buying her house. They've done some. They're kind of still in between. They're living in the house, but they still have to move some things over from the old place and get it ready to sell. So that'll give them a chance to get some work done. So yeah, I guess that's it for now. I am not planning to record next week, just because now that it's the weekend, it doesn't seem to make much sense to record Wednesday or Thursday. So I think what I'll do is record early the following week, and then we head out of town at the end of that week. So there'll be a couple of weeks between, or about a week and a half between this one and the next one, and then probably a couple of weeks between the next 2. But then hopefully I can get back on track. So take care until then. Thank you again for watching. Enjoy your week, or your week and a half, or however long it is. And happy knitting. Bye.